Welcome to On The Prowl, Four Seasons Wrap-Up, Panthers Update, RIP Mike Lange, Episode 26. I'm your host, Bill from Florida Panthers Den. Hope everyone is doing well. Today, we're going to go ahead and kind of slice this up into three parts today. Wanted to do a Four Nations wrap-up. We're going to start off with that. And then we're going to do the latest on the Florida Panthers, including the very latest information on Matthew Tkachuk, and then RIP Mike Lange. He was the longtime broadcaster of the Pittsburgh Penguins. So without any further ado, we're just going to jump into things here. Now, of course, we know the Four Nations wrapped up on February 20th there, and Connor McDavid lifts Canada to its seventh NHL International Tournament Championship, and McKinnon claims MVP honors after scoring again. Crosby adds to Canadian legacy with another title. It was, and we'll look at the next slide here, and it's as J.J. Watt, the football player, said, "Man, what a game, what a tournament. Thanks for the entertainment, fellas." And it was every bit of that. If you take a look here at the numbers, 16.1 million viewers across North America, 9.3 million in the United States, 6.8 million in Canada. Watch Thursday's Canada versus USA Four Nations Faceoff Championship overtime thriller. Now, the only thing that beat that is Game 7 of the 2024 Stanley Cup Finals, that says right here, because that drew 16.3 million viewers. So just a tad more, but again, that's for our cats. And just to kind of add some of my own personal thoughts regarding that, I would say this. I feel 100% for sure if Matthew Tkachuk wasn't injured, we'd have a different result. I really do feel that. He is every bit as important to Team USA as he is to the Panthers, and having him injured really changed the dynamics of that game. It still, though, was a great game. Hats off to Canada. Hats off, especially, I thought the MVP should have been Bennington. He was incredible that game. Everybody had been knocking him for letting in soft goals and having a history of doing that. And he was anything but. He was stellar, especially in that overtime period. One of the things, though, when I took a look at the replays, if you go back there and look at it, Austin Matthews, I don't know where he was at because he was supposed to cover Connor McDavid, and he was nowhere in sight. And when you give Connor McDavid time and space, he's going to come through, period. End of discussion. But anyway, this is going to bode well for 2026 for the Olympics. We'll see how that goes. A lot of people are saying that they should name Matthew Tkachuk as captain of Team USA. I would agree with them. Austin Matthews kind of was a no-show for this tournament versus Matthew Tkachuk. He was there, and if he had been able to play, like I said, in that third period and overtime and play that whole game, we would have had a different outcome. But anyway, the big winner was us. We all won. It was great. I am just absolutely thrilled about it. And I'm thrilled that most of our players came back healthy, and we're going to talk about that here in a minute. Now, last night we played the Seattle Kraken, and coming down to Sunrise. And now most of the guys had off for the tournament, so they had a nice couple of weeks vacation. They got back to practicing. I thought, they'll be in a groove, and especially the ones that were able to play last night who were in the Four Nations will be in a groove and we won't have a problem. Well, we had a problem last night. It was, Seattle is not even in the playoff picture. They are out of it right now, and they won the game 2-1. It was one of those games, and I said in the first period, the Panthers had the better of the play, but yet they were down 1-0. Panthers end up tying it up 1-1, and then we have a controversial no goal call because of supposed goaltender interference. Now, the referees here said that Erod entered the crease on his own, but if you watch the video of that, he clearly was pushed in there. And what was interesting was the NHL said on goalie interference, the video review determined that Evan Rodriguez's presence in the crease and his contact on Joey Dacord's stick impaired his ability to play his position prior to Mackie Samoskiewicz's goal. It was bad. The NHL totally blew that call. Everybody is in agreement with that. Panthers should have been up 2-1. At the very least, they would have gone to overtime with that. So But yeah, that was a little disconcerting. And one of the other things too is, when they're having trouble scoring, they really like to do what I call these tic-tac-toe passing plays, where they're going to on purpose shoot it wide in the net, but they're hoping to get a tip in from another player. In these instances, like I said, more often than not, it ends up, number one, as a turnover and the other team gets the puck. And number two, they need to alter the game plan. When they're having trouble scoring and it's very obvious like they did last night, they just need to shoot the puck on the net. The old saying is true. You can't score if you don't shoot. And that's exactly what it is. Even take the perimeter shots. You never know what's going to happen. And doing this tic-tac-toe type of plays and trying to get in and make these pretty passes and everything. Style points don't win NHL games. Goals win NHL games. That's the bottom line. I mean, I can't say that any better here. It was frustrating to watch last night. I really thought they were going to come back with some energy, being that they had been off for 10 days. And, and of course, 6 of the 7 or 6 or 7 of the 8 who were playing did show up last night, but it was like they were going through motions last night. They didn't have their legs. They said it here, and I wanted to put these quotes up here because this was from Paul Maurice after the game last night. It was just okay. It's not there's not a trend there that I'm worried about. Eetu Luostarinen said we can improve from this, and Lundell said I felt like we played pretty good. It was a tough game. Yeah and no. I don't think they did not play bad, but they didn't play well. And it was very obvious, especially when you're going up against a team like Seattle. Seattle, like I said, they're not even on the bubble for the playoffs this year. And they, came in and they ended up taking the game and winning the game. And because, and a large part of it was, again, the Panthers having problems. When they have the problem scoring, they need to adapt. And they didn't do that last night. Now, some of the stats, the Panthers surrendered just 4 scoring chances in the third period, which was good. Jesper Boquist and Greer each recorded 4 hits. Kulikov blocked a team-high 2 shots on goal. Barkov went 12 for 20, 60% in the faceoff circle. Bobrovsky stopped 18 and 19 shots at 5-on-5. Okay. And they didn't give up a 6-on-5 goal last night. And I think that they published a stat during the game last night, and I wanted to get it down, but I didn't. But I think they've scored on 6-on-5. I think they've scored 2 goals this year and have surrendered like maybe 12. So it's the extra attacker has not boded very well for the Panthers this season. Their next game is on Tuesday at 8:00 against the Nashville Predators. And then they come right back to probably one of the, it's going to be a game that's going to be very popular. They're playing the Edmonton Oilers on Thursday, and Stanley Cup Game 7 final rematch. We're down here in Florida for that. So who knows how that's going to end up? That's going to be very interesting. Everybody's concerned about Matthew Tkachuk, and as well, everybody should be. He didn't play against the Kraken, of course, last night, and of course, the NHL is very particular about upper body injury, lower body injury, and it's been that way for a long time. And as of right now, Tkachuk's injury is being described as lower body. Give him day to day, and then I'll give you a pretty good update in the next couple of days, Maurice said. And what they're saying is he's going to be undergoing a lot of tests these next couple of days to see what's going on. And I see, of course, all the so-called doctors are out on Twitter telling everybody what this is, that it's a groin pull, which is what I think it is. But, I'm not a doctor. I'm not a medical professional. I can't even begin to say that. He's going to undergo a number of tests to see what's going on here. And they'll probably have a course of treatment for him. Hopefully it's only a couple of weeks, 2 or 3 weeks, that he'll be out and he'll be able to suit up for the playoffs. Because as I stated right here, Panthers are fine for the rest of the season without him. Others will step up. But no question, we need him for the playoffs, period. Okay. And that's very true. And you can see this empty netters guy right here, hearing that Matthew Tkachuk's injury could see him miss a significant amount of time. We'll wait for more details, but that would be a devastating blow to Florida. Regular season, no. Playoffs, yes, for sure. So we'll kind of do one of these and see where we're going with this. I mean, and we all know, and as I reported in my podcast before the Four Nations tournament, he was a house of fire. I mean, he got one of the NHL stars of the week, I believe. He was the hottest player on the Panthers. There was no questions asked. And a lot of people were just poo-pooing the Four Nations tournament because of those who got hurt. And then it just wasn't Matthew Tkachuk. Charlie McAvoy from the Boston Bruins is another notable person who is going to be out probably long term. I think he has an infection in his arm. He was in the hospital for that. Our thoughts and prayers are with Charlie that he can recover fully from that, which is obviously, first and foremost, you want to get your health back, and then, hopefully be able to rejoin your team. And, our thoughts and prayers are with Matthew Tkachuk that this can not be long-term and that he can get back in time for the playoffs. That's I think is what is a paramount concern to all of us here. Now, one of the things that I didn't put a graphic up here for is March 7th is approaching rather rapidly. And you know what March 7th is. March 7th is the trade deadline for the NHL. And we're about a little bit over, 2 weeks away probably from that. Right now, today's the 23rd. So yeah, probably about 2 weeks from that. But, who knows what Bill Zito is going to do. There was talk and there's speculation based on Matthew Tkachuk's injury that they can do what the Vegas Golden Knights have done with Mark Stone and put him on long-term injured reserve and, not have that cap space count and then be able to go pick up somebody. Who knows? Who knows what's going to happen here? And again, as I've alluded to before, when we talked about this and with Zito going out there and trying to find somebody, you don't want to sell the house to get, you want to get more than you're giving up here. And a lot of people, there was speculation on getting Brady Tkachuk. Watch the Cats and Rats podcast with Rod and Serena. They had Bill Lindsay on. They'll tell you exactly why that's not going to happen. Okay. That, I would go out there, and I commented, I'm good friends with Rod. I commented out there. He had a big chuckle on it. Seeing so many people say, we need to get Brady Tkachuk. We need to get Brady Tkachuk. Brady Tkachuk is perfect for the Ottawa Senators. All right. That's not going to happen. All right. It will not happen. He is not going from there. He is a hand in glove fit. And believe it or not, I'll say this. He is a different player from Matthew. All right. They are two different players. Brady plays a lot like his dad, Keith, did. All right. Brady's extremely physical, probably more physical than Matthew. Matthew has a lot more, what I would say, finesse to his game. Doesn't mean Brady's less skilled than him. I just think he has more finesse to his game. And I also think too, he's not apt to get into altercations like Brady does at times. But, Brady is leading the Ottawa Senators, and they are doing fantastic this year. After everybody was giving them up for dead, they're doing fantastic. So we'll see where this goes as far as the trade talk is concerned. Again, that's coming up, and we would I would think the Panthers will make some type of decision based on, Bill Zito's, taking a lot of things into account, including, what's going on with Matthew Tkachuk, and also too where they're standing and what they need. There was talk of trying to get Dobson from the Islanders. Who knows where we're going with that. So we'll see how this ends up. Just so stay tuned to all this. This is going to play out over the next week and a half or so. So, and if there is any update, we'll be sure to talk about it on next week's podcast. So RIP Mike Lange. Mike Lange was the broadcaster for the Pittsburgh Penguins for 46 years. Yes, 46 years. If you haven't heard of Mike Lange, you probably heard of some of his catchphrases. And there are so many of them, they are indescribable. And you can go out to the Penguins out on X or out to their website. There are incredible videos that talk about his catchphrases that he used over the years. One of my personal favorites is this, and Mike Lange even wrote a story about it. Jaromir Jagr was riding on the team bus when he played for the Penguins at the time, and he absolutely loved Mike Lange. And he asked Mike Lange to come up with a phrase for him. So Mike Lange did. And the phrase that he came up for Jaromir Jagr was, he smoked him like a bad cigar. And I absolutely, that's probably my favorite of all the ones that Mike had used. Mike Lange was a wordsmith, a magician behind the mic. The Californian quickly became a quintessential Pittsburgher, and his colorful calls and smooth cadence brought Penguins hockey to life. The Hall of Famer's voice is synonymous with the biggest calls in franchise history, including all 5 Stanley Cup championships, and his unique one-liners and knack for anticipating game-changing plays set him apart from other announcers. Only Mike could make the biggest names in hockey seem even more magical with just his voice. Mike was so much more than a legendary broadcaster. He was respected by the players and coaches and beloved by the fans. Because of him, hockey nights in Pittsburgh had the entire city smiling like a butcher's dog. And that was one of Mike's catchphrases, was smiling like a butcher's dog. Now, you have to remember, and I want to go back here. I'm going to show, I have some more slides here on this. Mike Lange came at a time he started in 1974, I believe. He came at a time when the Penguins came into existence in 1968 during the NHL expansion during that year, and they were only around 6 years when he started with them. And you have to remember, we're going way back in the day, and some of you may remember, I went to my first game, and I remember the first game was against the New York Rangers, and they made a big deal because Vic Hatfield was playing for the New York Rangers. He was their star player. And the Penguins, they didn't have star players. But they ended up getting some star players through the early 70s, and four of my favorites were Dave Burrows on defense. He was a defenseman. He would block shots before it was cool to block shots. There was Sillaps, Jean Pronovo, and Lowell McDonald. They were known as the Century Line, the first line to get 100 points. Okay. And Mike brought such a unique knack to listening to games. Was when I was a young teen and they would go out on the West Coast, he had what he called a midnight club. And I would take my transistor radio, put it under my pillow at night, and listen to games when the Penguins were out on the West Coast. And he was such a wordsmith, he would tell you when the game started, the Penguins are skating from left to right on your radio dial, okay? You felt like you were there. Because back in the day, back in the 70s, we would maybe get 5, 6, or 7 games a year to watch. That's it. We had radio was the primary means of following a team back in the day. The NHL contracts weren't there. It was very rare to watch games on TV, and it was a real treat, night in, night out, listening to Mike Lange calling the game. And that's how I learned hockey. I learned hockey from him. And what's amazing, I went out to X out on for the Penguins, and I literally saw dozens, and I mean dozens of stories just like mine. Putting a transistor radio under the pillow at night, listening to the game. I learned hockey from listening to Mike Lange. Bottom line, pure and simple. That's how I picked up the game of hockey. That's how I got to have such great knowledge. And one of the things I'm going to go ahead and put up the next slide here, and this was from a tribute that was on their website. Lange likened games on radio to creating a book, which always began with him saying, "It's a hockey night in Pittsburgh." From there, no one knew where it was going to go, and Lange loved that he got to build chapter after chapter before Elvis left the building. What made the book better, Lange always said, was anticipation. His broadcasting partners agree that was always Lange's biggest strength, marveling at his feel for what was going to happen before it happened, especially as someone who never laced up skates himself or even watched the game until college. He just had an incredible knack. You knew what was going to happen from what he was telling you. You knew that ahead of time, okay? And just his words were just so incredible. I've never come across a broadcaster like that ever before. They had a tribute for him yesterday at PPG Paints Arena, and his family was there. His son's wife, and her son and his wife were there, and some of the players came up and presented things as well too. And then Mike's headset. He used the same headset for 46 years. There's duct tape on it. He refused to get it upgraded. He refused to update it. That was what he did. He would literally come hours before the game. He would watch practice, take notes during practice, talk to the players ahead of the game. This was before, it was cool to do all that. This was before a lot of reporters would do that. He would sit there. He worked. He was dedicated to his job. He knew the Penguins inside and out, and backwards and forwards here. And he began every game by, "It's a hockey night in Pittsburgh." And then whenever the Penguins would win, "Ladies and gentlemen, Elvis has just left the building." And what they do at PPG Paints Arena, every time the Penguins win, they play a recording of Mike Lange's voice. "Ladies and gentlemen, Elvis has just left the building." I want to share some final thoughts about Mike Lange here. I was a shy 13-year-old teenager at the time growing up, and unfortunately, I was bullied at school, and I didn't have a lot of friends at the time. And hockey was a way of escape for me. I even picked up an NHL rule book at one of the games. I think it was $5. And I poured through the rules. I knew them backwards and forwards. It was something to me that was incredible. And Mike Lange brought this to life for me. He made hockey a way of escape for me from the bullying, and the bullying got less and less through the years, and I ended up getting a nice core of friends who liked hockey back in the day, and some really good friends. And I remember one of my friends who unfortunately passed away from cancer several years ago. We would spend an entire study hall talking about the Penguins. And I'm not talking about Sidney Crosby and Evgeny Malkin and Chris Letang, but I'm talking about the Penguins of the 70s, Sillaps, Jean Pronovost, Lowell McDonald, and Jim Rutherford, who is general manager, I think, of Vancouver. He was goaltender back in the day. We would talk about that ad nauseum back then. And what a great way for helping me. It really helped me transition out of being bullied into getting respect and some popularity in school. And it really made a big difference. And a lot of that was listening to Mike Lange. And I'm not ashamed to say I shed some tears over this. It was that powerful to me. He had such a great impact on my life and made such a difference for me. So, Mike Lange, I hope you're smiling like a butcher's dog. And ladies and gentlemen, Elvis has just left the building. Thank you, everyone, for tuning in to this very special episode. And as always, it's a great day for Florida Panthers hockey. Time to hunt.